Bryan, you used to work for Foxtons, and they are notorious at not negotiating their fees. So have you got any top tips for the guys out there on how they can get top fees? Talk to me.
Yeah, great. Okay, so notorious for not negotiating, but more notorious for negotiating higher prices for customers on offer stage. I was obviously in the thick of it with some exceptionally talented agents, and it taught me my whole new way of estate agency that I'd never seen before, Chris. And that was that people fundamentally will not decide on fee and price unless they have to, unless they have no other way of deciding to use you. And ultimately, I was up against, like most of your watchers and your clients are, some very good agents. I worked in Wimbledon, I worked in Chiswick, I worked in some very good areas, and I had the privilege of actually launching one of the first virtual models for Foxtons out of London a few years back. What I learned though was that when you knock on someone's door, you're going to expect them to open that door. This is a vendor, a customer, and they're going to say, whatever someone else has just told me, you can't say. If you say it, you're out. We won't list the house with you. And I always had this inner monologue. So whatever I said to a vendor, a new customer, had to be what nobody else could say.
Do you think most estate agents sound the same then?
Yeah, of course they do. Look the same, sound the same, got the same type of offices, or they've got the same type of cars, they wear the same type of suits.
Okay. So Foxtons got all their properties because they drive around in minis and their shops look like coffee bars. Is that it?
We used both of those. So the minis were genius. See, to the outside world that haven't seen there, Foxtons guys all drive around in minis. That is a fundamental way to drive leads into the agency business.
No.
Absolutely. It's brand recognition. And in London, that we had a mission at the time, this is a few years ago, and I'm sure it hasn't changed, was that a mini would be seen every 6 minutes anywhere in the areas that we worked in. Which, so the constant brand, it's like a board just driving around all day. But it's like having hundreds of boards driving around all day.
But you need lots of them. One won't do, will it? If you just one office operation, there's lots of them.
And that's where I think there's a big misconception. I think, I was with Foxtons when they launched the first brand of minis with what we call the Foxtons Jack on the top, and then they went to the NASCAR effect, and it was absolutely groundbreaking. But most of the outside world, agency world, misunderstood the purpose of that. They thought branding one car is the route to it. It's not. It's about volumization. You've got to be seen anywhere, and the more, because it's brand recognition. So it's very important to have volume.
Interesting. I never thought of it. So if you've got one car, don't bother. But if you're a big boy in a big town and you've got 10 cars,
yeah,
like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else do they do? Because it can't just be coffee shops. And
no, not at all, not at all. So it was about productivity. It was about proactiveness. That was the key message. We are there at the time, and it's still the case now, on behalf of our vendors, yeah. And John Hunt, who was at the time the owner of Foxtons, and Peter Rollins would always say to us that we go to war for our vendors. We stand in front of them, and we protect them, and we only let the best people view their home. We make sure those people are physically checked. Physically, yeah. We don't physically check them over, but they are verified financially in their situations and so on. And then you negotiate like hell. So we would take a property onto the market, and we would never stop proactively, phone, online, etc., trying to generate viewings until we were told to. If we had a 3-month contract, I can tell you now, on the 90th day, we were still attempting to sell that house with the same vigour and enthusiasm as day one.
So do you think estate agents generally have that same vigour?
No. Post and pray. Put it on Rightmove, because they have lower numbers of staff these days, or they're out on the road all the time. They have a number of properties to try to service. And in all honesty, there's a lot more sort of tech now where they have to look, a lot more stuff they have to do in an office. But actually, if you look at the productivity output of a negotiator or a manager or anybody really, an estate agent, we should say, on a daily basis on an individual property, there is definitely, it's almost like a graph like you see on Rightmove. Starts off really high, and then it just drops down and bobs along until there's a change in the price potentially.
Is that where you think Foxtons win? Because the mentality from the top is, we're at war.
It's one business, it's one mentality, one message. The brand language internally is the same with every person.
Because you don't seem to see many people leaving Foxtons. Well, you did, but
yeah, I did with a heavy heart, in fairness, at the time. But you don't, I suppose, because actually your earning potential is fantastic. So you're rewarded for your output. So it's very easy for the management to say, I want 30 viewings a day for 18 grand a year. No. Well, but if you 30 viewings a day will generate you this number of sales, that number of sales will mean you'll earn £60,000 a year plus. So the incentive to be productive and then use your skill, very, very high, higher than most agencies.
So what do you think that's something that estate agents in the UK could learn from Foxtons?
I think they could learn, the fundamental message that I took from Foxtons was that remember who you're working for. Okay, it wasn't Foxtons. Yeah, it was the owners of the houses who were helping moving.
I think the line that really stuck with me is we go to war for them.
Go to war for them, absolutely. They are relying on us to do that. Yeah, they are relying on us to every single day, whilst they've instructed us, to have the same level of enthusiasm that we had on day one.
So simple, but yet so effective.
Well, the other thing, Chris, that was fundamental to it is we would not let, and I certainly wouldn't when I was running a branch and then an area, we would not let a negotiator make an outbound call on a property unless they had physically seen it.
So well, we talked about that in a previous video.
Yes, of course.
And it's so simple, but how the hell can you sell a property if you've not seen it yourself? Otherwise, it's just pictures and words.
If you phone buyers, you expect to ring them back. I'm not a believer in funnels and you ring 200 people, get 10 people to phone you back. If you ring 200 people, you want 200 people to phone you back. The reason that most of them don't is that there's no value that they've attached to you for ringing you back. No benefit.
Because if you've just seen the pictures on Rightmove, well, they can see it on Rightmove themselves.
But if I say to you, let's say you're on the phone to me telling me about this wonderful house you've got, and I say, great, Chris, have you seen it? And you say no. From that point on, our relationship is I've got the control because you have no. I don't believe you. You're just a salesperson. How do I say it? Typical estate agent.
Just a phone call person.
Yeah, but if you say, actually, I saw it yesterday, and
beautiful, the location,
now
bus round the corner.
Exactly, the difference between
adding emotion
is massive. Yeah.
It's emotion versus transaction.
What it actually is,
relationship.
It is. It's emotion and logic. Yeah, you deliver something with emotion, but you also use logic, and both of those two things connected drive certainty.
95% of buying decisions are based on emotion. And then logic backs it up. And I think we're probably too logical in the estate agency, aren't we?
I think so. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Well, cheers.